Sir Arnel?
Okay. Yep. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon po, sir.
Okay. Let us bow our heads and feel the presence of God. Oh, Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to learn process safety management, oh Lord. Father God, we thank you that you have brought presenter to us to impart his knowledge and expertise about the subject, Father God. Oh, Father God, we ask you to guide us throughout all this activity, especially, oh Lord, the presenter and the moderator. Once again, oh Lord, we ask you, Panginoon, we put this activity into your name, Panginoon, so that Panginoon, that open our eyes, open our mind, open our hearts, that we may be able to use and have benefits from this webinar, oh Lord. Thank you, Father God, and we ask you to bless us throughout all this activity and through us all the day, Panginoon, wherever we are in this part of the world. This we pray in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
All right. Salamat po, Sir Arnel, for that prayer. Ngayon naman, bago tayo mag-umpisa, i-explain ko lang sa inyo yung mga webinar guidelines. And unang-una pala, hindi pa pala ako nagpakilala kanina, no? So, ako yung inyong moderator. So, my name is Alan D. Yan din naman yung nakikita dyan sa, sa name ko. So, kasi part ng guidelines na i-explain ko,
start na ba?
dapat alam nyo kung sino yung moderator. Tapos ang host natin is si Hilbert Libres and our co-host is Rebecca Cesaldo. So, explain ko lang yung mga webinar guidelines. Unang-una, all participants except for the facilitator and speakers will remain muted throughout the webinar. Okay? Number 2, type in your questions in the chat box anytime during or after the presentation. So questions will be entertained during the open forum. So only when necessary, unmute your mic to speak up. So after nung matapos yung speaker, then that's the time na i-entertain natin yung questions. Okay? And then, occasionally, polls will be launched. So everyone is encouraged to get engaged. So every, 5 minutes or something, may question na maglo-launch. So sana mag-engage tayo. Okay? And then lastly, for any assistance, please direct your message to the host or moderator through the chat box. So katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, ako yung moderator, so you can direct your message to me or the host, si Engineer Hilbert, or to the co-host na si Ma'am Rebecca. Okay? So malinaw ba yung guidelines? So now, let's introduce the speaker. So our speaker is a global process safety manager, Corning company. He is a PhD in chemistry, chemical engineering, Hiroshima University, and is now a senior member, American Institute of Chemical Engineering. So aside from that, meron din tayong konting trivia sa speaker. Okay? Dali lang. Naglalag. Okay. So may konting trivia. Yung speaker dreamt of becoming an astronaut as a kid because of his namesake. Tama, no? Neil. And then changed his dream in college to becoming a scientist. So which he achieved for some time and realized it's not for research. Now he dreams of someday becoming a rock band drummer. Alright, di ba? And then, since a big sports enthusiast siya, especially basketball, but has also informally played sepak takraw and cricket, which he couldn't understand. Alright, so without further ado, let's welcome Sir Neil Concibido, Engineer Neil Concibido.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you rin, Hilbert. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat, or magandang hapon. Assalamualaikum. Konnichiwa and konbanwa. I'm calling from Osaka, Japan. It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And for today, I would like to share about, I'll give you an overview of process safety management. Perhaps some of you have some idea of what it is. And then I will also talk a little about my work in Corning. So can you go to the next slide, please?
Hi, sorry, sure.
Are we gonna share or?
Yes, yeah, please share.
Oh, okay, sorry. This one here. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's all clear.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I can say that God has blessed me throughout my studies, as He provided me with all the scholarships that I have received in all levels of my education. So starting in high school, I studied in Philippine Science High School, same as Hilbert, and after that, I went to UPLB to take my BS Chemical Engineering course, and at the time I was given a DOST scholarship. Then I studied for my master's in AIT in Thailand in bioprocess technology. At that time, I was given a scholarship by the German agency, DAAD. Then I did my PhD in Hiroshima University under the Mombusho, or Ministry of Education and Sports scholarship. And then even after I lost my scholarship, na-extend ako, I was able to get a scholarship from JASO. It's another group in Japan. Okay. And then a little bit about my career. I started as an RA, research assistant in biotech in UPLB. And I only worked there for a few months. So most of the time I was preoccupied with checking whether my salary has arrived or not. Ganun sana eh. Pero normally pag sa research institutions sa Pilipinas, di ba? So I got this opportunity to teach chemistry in the Institute of Chemistry in UPLB. And I handled laboratory classes in general chemistry, organic chemistry, and physical chemistry. I think I like general chemistry the best since I had a lot of freshman students. And then it's great to help them appreciate the beauty of chemistry, which was, you know, guess what? My favorite subject in the university. Then after a couple of years, I got this opportunity to work in the industry in YF. So tinatawag na siya, PIChE na ang tawag sa kanya ngayon. So I was working as a lab analyst in the QA chemistry laboratory, testing milk samples. And in less than a year, I had to move again because I went to Thailand, as I mentioned, to do my master's. And after doing my master's in Thailand, I came back to UPLB, this time to teach in the engineering science. Hilbert, I think, also had an experience teaching in engineering science in UPLB. So back then, I taught engineering mechanics, fluid mechanics, and AutoCAD. So in those subjects, fluid mechanics yung favorite ko. And after a few years, I think 3 or 4 years, I had to move to Hiroshima to do my PhD study. So dumating opportunity for me to take my PhD under the Mombusho scholarship. And soon after, I was looking for a job. Then I found this job in an international baccalaureate school. I was teaching math in English. Pero I had to give it up after I think 4 or 5 months because this opportunity to work in what was called then as National Starch and Chemical as a process project engineer. Buti na lang inalaw ako nung school ko na mag-resign, although I had a 1-year contract. So in National Starch, or later on acquired by Henkel Japan, my responsibility, my role was a project engineer. So I was doing process improvements, but not only solely chemical engineering. I also learned other aspects of engineering. May project ako na semento kami nung parking lot, gumawa ako ng warehouse, gumawa ako ng discharge valve para sa aming planta so we can control any wastewater that might leak out of the plant, and then other things. But 25 to 50% of my time I spent on safety. So this is, I think, my first real job as a chemical engineer. So in my role in the safety department, just because I was the only non-Japanese in that company, it's in another prefecture in Japan. Whenever the auditors from the region or from the global organization, I would be in the front line to deal with them kasi ako lang yung mas nakakapagsalita ng English. Mga Pilipino na magaling mag-English, di ba? So I had to brush up on my knowledge on safety, and that's the time that I was introduced to things that I never knew before, like HACCPs or PIChE. And we didn't call process safety management as PSM, but National Starch, being under the British group, the ICI group, Imperial Chemical Industry, which who initiated or originated the HACCP process, they have a very good PSM process. So I learned a lot during my time there. And then a headhunter found me in LinkedIn. So I really always encourage people to put your resume in LinkedIn. So that's how Corning found me. And they gave me this opportunity to work for them as a process safety manager, right? And next, I would like to talk about Corning. Okay, and I would like to have this poll first to know whether you know anything about Corning, because most of the time when I talk to people and I tell them that I'm from Corning, they would probably 2 out of 10 would answer correctly. So here's the poll. Which of the following products do you think Corning was or is involved in? Lamps, iPhone, Pyrex glasswares, the Hubble telescope, or dining plates? So, okay na ba yun? So, may results na?
Yeah, let's wait for a few seconds. Medyo madami pa. 37, okay. 40.
Let's see how much you know about Corning.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry, I didn't know anything about Corning when I was applying for with them.
But it sounds familiar.
Yung ba yung sir, pag nagjo-joke ka tapos hindi masyadong nakakatawa kaya Corning?
Sorry hindi kasama sa choices eh.
Okay. So I think we have 46 responses. I can share this. All right. Okay. All right.
Pyrex glasswares, number 1. And then dining plates. Okay. The correct answer is all of these. Pero yung dining plates, yung palagi sinasagot ng mga tao pag nanaman nila I'm from Corning. You're the producer of Corning plates. We used to. That was 50 years ago. 50th anniversary actually ngayon ng Corning ware. Pero hindi na kami nagpo-produce ng ngayon. But all these products, Corning was involved in producing them. In fact, the very first one were the lamps. We supplied the lamps to Thomas Alva Edison at that time. Okay. So let me talk more about my company. Okay, so I'm going to show you the different businesses that we have. So like I said, we no longer produce the plates. We are actually an innovation company. Anything that has to do with glass and ceramic, pinoproduce namin yon. We're involved in that. We have been in the business for almost 170 years. We are a Fortune 500 company. Like I said, some of the products that we have, bukod sa light bulbs na binigay namin kay Thomas Alva Edison, in the display business, that's one of our businesses, yung mga cover panels ng displays of television. We produce the largest cover panel in the world, or cover glass in the world, mga 3 by 3 meters. We have it in China. We also have it in Japan. So if you think of it, you probably would produce like several of 52-inch color TVs. And also, maraming layers yan, yung TV. Just like the next product, yung mga mobile electronics or mobile gadgets. We are actually as of this year in 8 billion gadgets and in more than 3,000 models, including the iPhone. So it's published it's well published that Steve Jobs went to our CEO to ask him whether Corning has this thin but tough glass na naging instrumental when they released iPhone. So siguro kung hindi sila nag-usap noon, baka later pa na-release yung iPhone, or siguro they went to another company. We are also involved in fiber optics and wireless technologies and connectivity. Again, incidentally, this year, ito yung 50th anniversary ng optical fiber. So until 2017, we were able to produce 1 billion kilometers of optical fiber. So that means it will allow you to go between Earth to the Moon more than 3,000 times. And yung iba pa naming business, automotive, clean air technology products for passenger cars and trucks. So maybe many of you are familiar with the catalytic converters. Yung pinaglalagyan ng catalytic converters like a honeycomb, dumilalagay doon, nilalagay sa exhaust ng mga kotse at sa mga trucks. So we also have the gas particulate filter. And we are also venturing into making windshields for automobiles. And ito yung most popular namin ngayon na product, something to do with the COVID pandemic. We are producing vials that are used for high value pharma products. And also to add to that, yung kanina tanong ko sa Paul, we also produce Pyrex, Oxygen, Gosselin, and other lab glasswares. And I'm sure you have experience using those glasswares. So pati yung mga pipette tips na ginagamit nyo nung kayo nag-chemistry sa inyong mga pag-kemeng. Okay? All right, so next is, I want to talk about Corning's process safety management and talk about what is PSM. So PSM is essentially the application of management principles to ensure the safety of process involving highly hazardous chemicals and combustible dust. In Corning, we actually included combustible dust, like sugar. With PSM, we want to prevent or mitigate a loss of containment. Because if you have an LOC, or loss of containment, you may have fire, explosion, or toxic leaks. And of course, we know that such incidents can lead to injuries, multiple injuries, fatalities, multiple fatalities, environmental damages, and asset losses. Okay. I think most of you are familiar with safety, occupational safety. And safety programs are implemented in the manufacturing industry. It's very important. And there are 3 reasons why safety programs are implemented in the manufacturing. So una, moral reason, we don't want people to be injured or to be perishing, right? So sabi nga ng kaibigan ko, nothing we do is worth being hurt for. Also, the other reason is economic. So if you have a safety incident, that would cost the plant some money. And of course, you have to suspend your operations. So magkakaroon din ng production losses. And the third reason is regulatory. Okay? In all countries, there is a regulating body on safety. So in the US, you have OSHA. In Europe, you have, I think they call it OHS, or the corresponding statute is COMA, COMAH. We also have some in Korea, they call it KOSHA, and they have a very strict PSM actually, stricter than the OSHA PSM. Meron din sa China, they call it GB code, and in other countries as well. Okay, so this graph here compares occupational safety and process safety. So when you talk about occupational safety, you try to prevent those incidents that could lead to slips, trips, or falls. Ito yung mga incidents na mababa yung consequences or rather severity, pero these are the incidents that we see all the time. Lagi naman nakita may nadudulas, may nadatapa, or nahuhulog, or nalalapnos. But when we talk about process safety, you talk about fire, explosion, and toxic releases, the consequences of which are high severity incidents. Or rather, the consequences are highly severe. However, these incidents don't happen all the time. In fact, sometimes you won't see them happen under your watch. So medyo mas mahirap i-explain ng process safety kasi sa mga nagtatrabaho sa manufacturing, hindi nila madalas makikita itong ganitong incidents. But when they happen, the consequences are tremendous, catastrophic consequences. And just to give you an idea, here are some notable process safety incidents in the past. Whenever we talk about PSM, palaging napag-uusapan yung Bhopal, India. If you haven't had the chance yet, meron actually movie about this incident. So at that time, 2,000 Indians around the plant died instantly kasi nagkaroon ng methyl isocyanate leak, which is a very toxic compound. And more than 500,000 people were suffering from chemical-related injuries or illnesses. And Union Carbide, the company, actually folded in. So the other one is Imperial Sugar. So we thought that sugar is only sweet and harmless, but actually in this incident, the cause was the explosion from sugar, which is combustible. That's why in Corning, we included combustible dust. Yung sa OSHA PSM in the US, hindi kasama yung combustible dust. There is a separate standard governing combustible dust. Pero sa amin, sinama namin yung process namin na may combustible dust. In the Middle East, sorry, not Middle East, but in the US as well, in the Deepwater Horizon incident, meron ding movie ito. It happened in the Gulf of Mexico, some 100 kilometers away from Louisiana, I think. Tapos recently, yung incident sa Tianjin, China, it involved ammonium nitrate. Nakapareho halos na nangyari sa Beirut, Lebanon. Just this month. Okay? So sa Tianjin, about 173 people were killed, about 800 were injured. Dito sa Beirut, the current count is 181 deaths and 6,000 injuries, right? And about 300,000 people were left homeless. If you saw pictures and videos of that incident, parang reminiscent na nangyari sa Hiroshima dito. And also we have this incident in India in May. It's a Korean company, LG Chemicals, the largest Korean chemical company. So nagkaroon ng leak ng styrene. Maybe some of you are familiar with styrene. Nag-polymerize siya. So nag-escape yung styrene, which happened to be toxic. And 12 people perished and more than 300 were hospitalized. Okay. So let me give you some quotes that I like on safety. Sabi ko nga kanina, nothing that we do is worth being hurt for. Yung nabanggit ko na. And many people wouldn't like to implement safety programs or implement safeguards or control measures because they think it's expensive. But as they say, if you think safety is expensive, try an accident. Tapos yung sa inherent safety, what you don't have won't leak. Kung wala ka nun, hindi siya maglilik. Di ba? And also this one, the absence of evidence of risk is not evidence of the absence of risk, which would be useful when you use one of the important tools of PSM, which I will be talking about. PHA, tinatag na PHA, or Process Hazard Analysis. So ito yung heart ng PSM. So pag meron kang process, you would like to know what can go wrong, okay? And how bad can it be? Ano yung magiging consequences? And how often can it happen? Taken all together, this is the risk of the process. So yun ang gusto mong malaman sa isang PSM covered process. You want to know what can happen, how bad it can be, and how often can it happen. Pinipredict mo. So this is different from what police investigations are for. So nangyari yung accident, saka lang nila-investigahan. The process hazard analysis proactive. You try to predict what can happen, what may happen. And most of the time, even if you include many minds, multiple, a team with multiple expertise, 60% ang nakukuha mo mga hazard scenarios. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to do it, because if you don't do anything, if you don't do a PHA, you would not predict anything. Right? You will not capture anything. So once you have done a PHA, you implement control measures. So this is what is called as the hierarchy of controls in PSM. Okay, meron poll. So bago tayo dumiretso sa slide na to, let us have this poll. Which of the following did or do you have any involvement in your job? Process safety, occupational safety, or both, or none? Okay. So I'll give you a few minutes, couple of minutes perhaps, to answer this. Okay, meron na birth? Or, yan. So both 39%, 25% sa OS, and 16% sa process safety. So okay, marami pa rin, we talk the same language somehow, right? So good. So marami pala akong kapareho dito. Thank you. So once you have done your PHA, you try to think about what control measures to implement. So ito nga yung hierarchy of controls. Yung elimination and substitution, essentially they're part of inherent safety. Then after that, you think about what engineering controls you can implement, like PSV, pressure safety valve, relief vents, explosion venting, and the likes. Then if you cannot think of other engineering controls, then you go to administrative controls like management of change, mechanical integrity, pre-startup safety review, and other policies that you can implement. And last defense mode would be the PPE, okay? Which, as you can see here, as you go up this inverted triangle, bumababa yung effectiveness ng control measure. Okay. And next, I would like to talk about the principles of inherent safety. Sabi nga dito, pinaka-effective yung inherent safety. So whenever you have a process involving highly hazardous chemicals, so obviously it poses a high risk. So of course, depende sa chemical mo, depende sa amounts, okay? First thing that you would like to do, or you would like to think about, is whether or not you can eliminate the hazardous substance. In most cases, mahirap gawin to kasi the reason why you use that particular chemical is because of its toxic or hazardous property, right? Let's say hydrofluoric acid, you use it for glass etching. Pag hindi siya hydrofluoric acid, medyo mahirap ka achieve ng etching property ng HF. Or you can probably substitute it with a safer substance. For example, instead of using oil in a heat exchanger, you can probably use steam. Can you reduce the amounts? Or can you use moderate conditions? Normally, pag ma-elevated yung temperature and pressure, medyo mas dangerous, di ba? So think about using moderate conditions. Perhaps you can use a different chemical route. Yan, pinag-aralan natin sa chemistry, di ba? Sa organic chemistry, madaming paths to produce a product from the raw materials. Can you simplify the process? Kasama na rin nga dun yung using moderate conditions. And instead of producing toxic intermediates, can you go through another path so that you won't be producing toxic intermediates? Can you reduce the handling by people? So dito, very relevant if you can use a lot of automation, okay? Or can you segregate the process from people? One of the things that they do in facility layout, tinatry nilang is-separate yung control room doon sa process mismo. So pagka magkaroon ng hazardous event doon sa process, medyo malayo yung occupied rooms. Now, if your answer to any of these, then you have somehow reduced the risk. But if these approaches are not possible, then still your risks are high. And then you resort to implementing the other control measures like engineering controls, administrative controls, and MPP. But if you cannot significantly reduce the risk, better yet, do not proceed with implementing the process. Okay. All right, I talked about PSM. So somehow I hope I was able to give you some overview. And you can ask some questions later. But at this point, I would like to talk about my job as a process safety manager. So when I entered Corning, they actually created the role and they looked for somebody for the job because they had some issues with a process wherein they use a highly hazardous chemical. So they thought they needed PSM. So yung PSM, like I said, ini-start to sa US ng OSHA, pero merong counterparts sa Europe, specifically yung Seviso directives. Meron din sa Korea, meron din sa China. Hindi ko sigurado sa Pilipinas. Hindi ako masyadong familiar sa safety regulations sa Pilipinas. Okay. So in my role, I was tasked to develop corporate safety standards and guidelines on PSM, management of change, chemical safety, hot work, and now I'm working on lab safety. So ako practically ang nag-set up ng framework ng process safety management ng Corning, and which is being followed by, I think we have like 10 or 15, 12 sites out of 80 sites that we have, including laboratories. So as part of corporate safety, we are in charge of governance or oversight. Myself, of Corning PSM sites in the US, Europe, and APAC. Pero this time, I'm also helping with the safety audits of Corning sites, even the non-PSM Corning sites. So because of the COVID pandemic, we are doing our audits virtually, which can be really challenging. Mahirap na nga yung on-site na auditing, ginawa pang virtual. So we have to be creative. And also coaching and guidance, training and support of the PSM sites mainly, and also for the other non-Corning PSM sites. And sometimes we would have some projects. We have our own project management team. So napaka-active ng aming project management team. Palagi meron silang projects kahit na ng pandemic. So sometimes they would come to us and ask for advice on safety, especially if their process involves highly hazardous chemicals. Okay. So in this role, here are the challenges and difficulties that I have had and having. Dahil sabi ko nga, yung role na yon, ako yung pinakaunang humawak, and ako pa rin lang mag-isa kong nag-ahawak nitong role na to. I don't have anybody reporting to me. I report to the corporate safety, or the director of corporate safety of Corning. So somehow I have to design how I will perform my work, and then I have to get I had to do a lot of reading. So mas madami pa siguro akong binabasa ngayon compared dun ako'y nag-aaral ng ChemEng sa university. I actually didn't have a Paris Chemical Engineering Handbook back then. Pero ngayon, paminsan-minsan tinitingnan ko. So, yun isa sa mga difficulty and also a challenge for me. And since I'm the only one, I need to get the buy-in from the sites and leadership. And like I said, it's much more difficult to convince people about the importance of process safety. Kasi hindi nga nila nakikita yung mga incidents na pwede mangyari sa process safety, di ba? So mahirap makuha yung buy-in ng leadership at saka ng site. But I have to do that. I have to be assertive. Kasi ako yung titingnan nila pagdating sa process safety. Even if I don't fully understand everything, I have to show them that I understood what I'm talking about. But like I said, I had to read a lot of references or books. Siguro yung mga familiar sa process safety, you're familiar with the red book from Chemical Center for Chemical Process Safety. Yung red book na parang process safety Bible daw nila. We have a diverse corporate safety group. It's based in the US. So yung mga colleagues ko, I have a Scottish colleague, French, Chinese, Taiwanese, Americans. Before, my boss was British, now American na siya. Tapos dati may kasama rin kaming taga Wales and some taga Puerto Rico. So kinakailangan ko makibagay sa kanila. Pati yung, as we all know, medyo yung mga Westerners mas assertive sila. Mas maiingay sila. Tayong mga Asians, especially Filipinos, and me as being here in Japan, lalo na mga Japanese, hindi lagi lang silang tahimik. So medyo na-imbibe ko yun. Since we operate in multiple countries, we have a diverse group of internal customers. Yung internal customers namin, ito na nga yung mga iba't ibang planta from different countries, from different cultures. So I need to know their cultures, and also more importantly need to know what are the applicable local regulations in those countries and regions. So it takes a lot of researching to do. Motivation and satisfaction. I truly believe that our company is making people's lives better. So itong ating session ngayon probably would have not been possible or would have been difficult without our optical fibers, pati yung mga computers na ginagamit nyo or yung mga gadgets. So in one way or the other, nahawakan nyo yung aming mga gadgets or mga products na merong product namin. And right now, I'm very proud that we are helping in the COVID pandemic initiatives. So like I said, we're producing those vials that are used for vaccines and high-value medicines. And since I am in charge of process safety, and like I said, some project teams would be consulting me, it gives me satisfaction to be able to share my knowledge and expertise, to keep them safer, to keep those people who make people's lives better, safer. And I think I am applying what I studied, trained for, not exactly remembering everything that I learned from the different subjects in chemistry, pero yung mindset, yung training, or lalo na yung training ko dito sa Japan, I was under a Japanese professor, so parang medyo may pagka-samurai yung training ko. So nakatulong yung mindset na yon, and palagi sinasabi ng professor ko, you always have to vet the information that you're getting. Hindi lahat ng information ay reliable, lalo na yung nanggagaling sa internet, Wikipedia. Huwag ko na paniwalaan ng Wikipedia. Learning new things, like I said, we have several divisions, so I'm able to see some of this process. Kasi yung aking responsibility, yung lahat ng divisions na nagpo-produce of different products. So I get to see some of these products being produced. So I'm very happy about that. Kung di man ako naging astronaut, merong medyo involved din ako doon sa mga bagay na ginagamit ng astronauts. Like yung Hubble telescope or yung glass windows ng space shuttle or space ships na ginagamit na US. So sa amin yon yung glass windows. And with my job, I'm able to see the world kasi I have to travel to different sites. So I'm very thankful that I'm also experiencing other cultures. So medyo naiiba rin yung perspective ko about other cultures, which I never imagined. Itong mga places na puntahan ko na parang nakita ko lang sa movies. Like I have said earlier, yung mga lessons learned, I have to be assertive. However, I have to be flexible and open-minded, okay? Especially with other cultures. I had to accept that I don't know everything, but I can learn new things. So I need to be like a sponge to learn new things, but I should also be ready to share what I know. I cannot do everything, but I can find someone who could. So yun nga, kahit nilalapitan nila ako, hindi naman kinakalang gawin ko yun. But I can find somebody who could do that. And that's where my network is very important, internal and external. So itong sa company namin, napaka-diverse, 5 different divisions. I need to know who in our company can do something for me. Tapos sa external, kaya nag-member din ako ng AICHE, American Institute of Chemical Engineers. Doon ko nakukuha yung mga ideas and further knowledge about process safety. Sabi ko nga, mag-isa ako sa role ko. Doon ako mas nakakakuha ng mga ideas, so information rather, on process safety. And even after the conference, I can always email them and ask them for certain information that I need. Kahit tapos na yung engagement nila sa amin as a consultant, I can always go to them. So napaka-importante yung network, and that's why I'm also quite active in LinkedIn. Don't be emotional and don't be personal. So sabi nga nila, trabaho lang. Hindi pwede maging emotional, lalo na if you're dealing with other cultures. And lastly, as they would say, managers do things right, but leaders always do the right thing. So I'm yung title ko, Process Safety Manager, but I hope that I'm not acting as a manager, but acting as a leader. Because leaders will always do the right thing. And I think that's it. Domo arigato gozaimashita. Kung di nyo mabasa, yun ang sinasabi niya. Which is, thank you very much. And perhaps I'm open now for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So thank you po, Engineer Neil for that wonderful discussion about process safety. So right now, mga ka-PIChE, it's our turn to ask questions to our speaker. Okay na ba, Mr. Host? I will ask the first question from the chat box. So the first question, nabanggit nyo kanina yung sa Deepwater Horizon. So sabi ni John Kenneth, isn't the Deepwater Horizon incident classified as drilling operation? And then he answered, I think it is an exemption under OSHA PSM. And then he has another question like, are those exemptions also present on the other PSM standards from different countries?
Okay, you may be right in that sense, pero I think what is being highlighted there, yung since it was a drilling operation, so it could have been worse kasi meron kang oil na nag-spill doon, and you didn't want to do that to happen kasi nagkaroon ka ng environmental damage. As for the exceptions, perhaps in other countries there are exceptions, but I think I want to point out in some cases like yung Korean PSM, mas strict pa actually sila, pati yung Taiwan PSM, I think. So, for example, in OSHA PSM, hindi nila isinasama yung fuels that are mainly used for heating. Pero pagdating sa Taiwan, covered din yan. Sa Korea naman, meron silang mga chemicals na otherwise hindi kasama sa OSHA PSM, pero kasama sa Korea, like those that are being used for wastewater treatment. But in our case, we have our own Corning PSM standard, which is based on, which I tried to for which I try to incorporate the different regulations kasi nga it will be applied globally. Medyo mas ginawa namin mas stringent. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Can we ask Mr. John Kenneth if you're satisfied with the answer of Mr. Neil? Yeah. So he said, I see. Thank you. All right. So the next question. In terms of capital investment, which of the control measures in the hierarchy is usually most expensive?
Oh, very good question. Actually, meron akong graph dyan eh. So, pag yung yung initial cost, normally mas mataas yung sa inherent safety at sa engineering controls. But in the long run, yung operational cost mo mataas dun sa administrative. Okay. And in terms of effectivity, like I said, pinaka-effective yung inherent safety.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of actual cost, it depends on the process eh. Medyo mahirap
Okay, and then may follow-up doon. Do you work with design engineers?
Yes, I do. Kasi with our Corning PSM standard, requirement na yung project management team ang mag-i-initiate ng PIChE. Okay? And whatever they learn from the PIChE, syempre dadagdagan nila yung kanilang design. Kung meron nakita yung team ng gaps, so i-implement nila yun before they actually come up with the final engineering design and bago i-approve. So they come to us. So yeah, many cases I work with design engineers which is quite fulfilling kasi may mga bagay na hindi ako alam, medyo may natutunan ako.
Oh, actually, may third question siya na parang magkakarugtong to eh, yung nagtanong na to. No? Ang next is, if I want to shift to process safety, how should I start? What advice can you give?
Okay, so I think you need to find out first which company you want to work for. In my case, I didn't know about Corning, pero nagkaroon nga na opening. So I think it's a blessing for me. So alamin muna kung saan mo gusto pumunta. Gusto ba sa chemical industry or sa oil and petroleum or yung mga tinatawag kong pseudo PSM companies. Kami naman, hindi talaga mga PSM company eh. But we are being proactive in our application. So yeah, you need to know where you want to work. And you need to, if you don't know anything about process safety, you need to read a lot of references like what I did. And still continuing, I still read a lot of books and references. And attend conferences.
Okay. So satisfied ba doon yung nagtanong? Okay, next question. Sir, can you share some tips on how to handle behavioral-based challenges to support process safety?
Pinakamahirap yan. Kasi it talks about safety culture, di ba? Yung governing principle kasi ng process safety, in my opinion, is the sense of vulnerability. Okay? Sense of vulnerability and the sense that everybody takes a part in the safety of your process. Okay? So yung PHA, isa yun sa mga ways para ma-improve mo yung ownership ng mga operators. Kasi in most cases, mga engineers lang sinasama, yung mga top managers do sa PHA or sa HACCP, which is more popular. Pero if you include your operators in such studies, mas naiintindihan nila yung process, okay? Mas tumataas yung kanilang ownership ng process kasi maisip nila, okay, I took part in this study. I learned more from what I'm handling. So mas nakakaroon sila ng sense of ownership. And in that way, mas maintindihan niya kung ano yung mga pwede mangyari sa kanya. So mas magiging maingat siya, masusundan niya yung mga SOPs mo, hindi siya magde-deviate. statistically, 80% of the incidents that have happened, in the catastrophic incidents in the chemical industry, were due to human errors. So, kung yung mga operators mo alam ang gagawin, na they cannot deviate from the procedures, they cannot make any changes without assessing their changes, hindi magkakaroon ng added risk, mas may improve yung safety culture ng iyong planta. So, workforce involvement is very important.
Okay. Next question.
Questions.
Yeah, next question. May nagtanong dito, do they strictly implement management of change and who sponsors it?
Yes, they have to. It's one of the elements of process safety. Sa US, meron silang 14 elements, yung sa CCPS 20, and one of them is management of change, which is very important. The catastrophic incidents in chemical industry don't happen when the process is being in normal operations. Nangyayari itong mga ganitong incidents pag merong binabago do sa operations mo. Pag normal operations, okay, smooth sailing ka. Pero pag somebody tries to make something, doon nagkakaroon ng trouble. And yes, MOC is very important.
All right. Okay.
Who
so my
sponsors
next
it? Sorry. May tanong siya, who sponsors it?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it should be the engineering manager or the process owner, because they're the ones who understand the process and will know whether a change is a change instead of what they call as a replacement in kind.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Yeah, may we know any
questions,
Yeah. May we know any effective safety assessment, evaluation procedures, methods para ma-quantify namin ang risks and hazards into values if we want to make a safety manual in our plant?
Quantify. So, are you familiar with QRA? So, yung QRA, may mga simulations silang ginagawa, mga computation na ginagawa. Trying to remember. Frequency and, I forgot the other term. So, meron silang curves na ginagamit to predict the risk of a certain process. Okay? But normally, they are being done after you have done the initial PIChE, which is essentially a qualitative analysis, right? Like HASOP. What if? Qualitative lang naman talaga yun eh. Pero meron ka mga value for the risk, pero those are just representatives. Ang tawag ko nga doon sa mga yun, like pseudo quantitative analysis. But I think one of the things that I'm very interested in is yung LOPA, layers of protection analysis. So parang, how do you say, tame version ng QRA. And it is applied for hazard scenarios that are contentious. Yung hindi nyo ma-decide from a normal PIChE. LOPA, layers of protection analysis, which is also very popular in the oil and petroleum industry.
Okay. He said, thank you. So we have 4 more questions. Pwede natin i-close para hindi tayo magtagal-tagal, no? 4 more questions. Kung may questions pa kayo, pwede natin para basahin ko sa chat. Pero 4 na lang ang tingin ko. Tama ba, Mr. Host? Okay lang ba, Miss Co-host?
Yes, okay lang.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 4 questions, okay? So next, can you further explain how you do virtual safety audits? It's interesting to know.
I think it came from Nina. Si Nina naging estudyante kaya. Well, like I said, it's really very challenging. We have several standards in Corning, and every standard merong SME. Like me, I wrote several standards. So ako yung nag-audit ng some particular program. For example, hot work or MOC. So what worked with me, I'm working from home, but I would normally have 2 screens with me. Para dun sa mga documents na hinihimay-himay namin yun. Inisa-isa namin. Tapos, we interview during the actual audit the different owners. And you can tell from their answers whether or not they're doing good on the specific element that they're in charge with. Tapos, syempre, hinihingan din namin ng mga photos for a specific question in the audit. So, it takes a lot of preparation from both sides. Perhaps they should be providing documents like a month or 2 weeks before the audit para mas marami kang time para tingnan yung documentation.
Okay, so idagdag ko lang yung related na question about safety audit. So may nag-question, how do you do sorry. Hirap basahin eh. How you do process safety audit during this pandemic, like virtual?
Ayun na eh,
virtual, like similar, yeah.
Virtual audits.
Okay,
but
so,
we have some sites in China, so yung travel hindi pa ganun ka-restricted. So meron kami itong mga colleagues na at the same time they'll be in the plant, but I still do the virtual audits. Tapos yun, we work together to make it more effective.
Okay, next question. What happened to the Dow Corning JV? Do you apply the same operating discipline? Dow has a world-class process safety OD. I'm just surprised that Corning has to start the PSM discipline.
Actually, nang pumasok ako, naghihiwalay na sila. I'm not really familiar with what they were doing. It's a totally separate entity in Dow Corning, parang separate company. And they decided to separate. So I don't know how they do it there.
Okay. So next question. Process improvement for safety purpose is quite a challenge. Can you give some tips on how to win support from management, especially now that some companies experience financial crisis?
Oh, yeah, it's really very difficult. So whenever I make presentations, naglalagay ako lagi ng videos and gory pictures. Meron ako natin na isang conference, sabi niya, yung ang tao daw, they would first appreciate photos rather than reading text. And then when they see, gory photos of the incident, you're actually scaring them. Pero when you scare them, kinakailangan mag-provide ka ng easy way out. Okay? Is it much easier to implement this safety control compared to bringing a colleague to the hospital? So things like those. Now, when it comes to management, mga managers naman laging concerned lang sila doon sa budget nila, sa funds, di ba? So you can provide them figures of how much losses were incurred in past incidents. And you can convince them that these are not just a product of my fickle imagination, pero those things actually happen. They haven't happened to us yet, but it could happen. So yan, dapat magising mo yung awareness nila. So you provide facts to them.
Okay. Next question. Does Corning implement LOTO, tag out verification in the isolation of equipment?
Yes, and every company should, right? So hindi lang sa PSM, pati yung sa mga electrical equipment, dapat in place yung lockout tagout. Now for PSM process, pag meron ka mga pipelines or equipment containing highly hazardous chemicals, there should be a procedure for locking it out. Especially for flammables, dapat wala ka ng flammables before, let's say, you do a welding work. Diba? So lockout tagout would also be very important in those tasks.
Okay, so para maiba naman, Ma'am Becky, pwede bang ikaw ang magtanong dun sa question mo?
Hi Sir Neil, in reference po dun sa sinabi niyo regarding on the DOPA, Ano po yung difference niya between LOPA and high-red C? Which one is more
Ano
effective?
high-red DC?
High-red C po. Hazard identification, risk assessment, and determining control. Ano po yung difference nilang dalawa, sir? And which one is more effective?
So, marami kasing methods na iba't iba yung acronym. I'm not really sure what high-red DC is. Siguro pag pinakita mo sa akin method, makikita ko. Kasi I know HIRA, but this is the
Yes,
first
sir.
time
It's
that I saw.
a HIRA, actually.
HIRA lang yan. So
Yes, sir. And then
HIRA,
we just added the control on that.
so in different sectors, iba yung definition nila ng HIRA. For example, in CCPS, HIRA is the overall term given to PIChE, even the JSAs and everything. Lahat ng hazard identification, risk assessment. Pero I think generally, HIRA is more of a qualitative assessment. Pero LOPA, pinapasukan mo na siya ng mga quantitative figures based on industrial data. So meron silang books of, let's say, how often would a valve fail? Like 10 years, once in 10 years. How often would a pump seal fail? Meron silang values. So ipinapasok mo yung mga values na yon para ma-estimate mo yung risk. And kino-compare mo sa acceptable risk. Yung acceptable risk is normally 10 to the minus 5. So once in 100 years, 100,000 years. So i-compare mo. So meron silang calculation. Compare mo doon sa acceptable risk which is decided by the company. So ano ba yung acceptable na societal risk at saka yung ano tawag nila, the process risk, I think. Okay. So meron silang books for that. I can recommend you some books on LOPA.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir Nate.
So, I think wala na tayong questions. And sa akin na lang, sir, parang nag-ano siya eh. Nag-hang.
Nag-hang ba si...
Oo. Parang tumigil yung kanyang face. Sayang. Anyways. Hilbert. Nakamute ka?
Yes.
Take na lang natin yung chance na to ano. Take na lang natin chance na to na. Yung isang question kasi about CPD points. Kung titingnan mo yung sa chat, sabi niya, sir, how can we credit this seminar to our CPD? Thanks.
At the moment,
Is that a question for me?
Ayan, andyan na siya.
Andyan na siya, sige. Mamaya na lang yun.
Okay, mamaya na lang. So,
Yun.
Sir Neil, actually, wala nang question about sa topic. Pero ang question ko na lang, since at least meron kami mga iba pang question, we can connect with you through LinkedIn. Tama ba? Okay lang ba, sir? Neil?
Yep.
Yeah, so
okay.
Your LinkedIn name is Neil C, right? Neil, capital C only. Tama ba?
Hindi, Neil Concibido. Ayun yata yung... Hindi, Neil Concibido.
Kasi inopen ko yung LinkedIn ko. And your name is
I think contact ko si Hilbert so you can...
okay.
And search me and connect with me.
Hindi, para sa iba din. Kung sakaling gusto nilang mag-connect sa inyo sa
Neil,
LinkedIn, di ba?
Let me check. No, Neil Concibido. Hindi yung Neil C. Old attempt.
Walang picture kasi doon eh. Anyways. Okay. Since Sir Hilbert is connected with you, so
yeah, Neil Concibido. So may picture ko naman doon so you would recognize that account.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will proceed now to the awards bago tayo mag-closing. Tama ba, Sir Hilbert?
Yep. Thank you, Alan. So let me just present this certificate. Okay, first of all, thank you, Sir Neil, for the wonderful presentation. So just to provide my feedback and just to share to everyone, I think you have the same feeling. It's really an interesting talk kasi what sets this apart from our previous webinars is that there's a high degree of practicality. So more on practical yung insights na nakuha natin from Sir Neil. And I think, or I hope it's useful for everyone, especially those who are into the field already or those who are planning to go into the field. Okay. So thank you for your time, Sir Neil. So on behalf of PIChE UAE, we would like to present you the Certificate of Appreciation for your valuable contribution as a resource speaker in this fifth webinar entitled The Filipino Process Safety Management Professional, conducted on this day, 28 August 2020. So signed by me, President, and Engineer Eileen Cruz, our EVP for this chapter. Thank you, and ito na yung...
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you po.
time.
Been an honor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our President, PIChE National Office, President Chris. And my question din kanina about CPD, so let me just answer that very quickly. At the moment, this webinar has not been applied to have credit units. But what you can do is we'll just provide you certificate of application and we can supply it to you and you can present it during the result. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So malapit na tayong matapos. Syempre kung may opening, may closing. Diba? So to close our program, may we ask Engineer Marilyn to close us this time? Engineer Marilyn, andyan pa ba siya?
Hello, good afternoon. I would like to thank each one of you for joining tonight in Philippines, and to thank Engineer Neil Concibido for such valuable information. I hope you had a good time and ready to be a process safety manager someday or soon. Okay, well, I hope you learned something new today and something you'd like to know before you join here. And I hope you find out something you'd like to know more about this process safety management or field and heard of something that have challenged you in your thinking and encourage you to learn something more beyond what you pick on these matters or on this subject. And who knows, later on you will share with us as well. PIChE UAE is still scouting everyone who are so generous to impart or share their knowledge, just like Engineer Concibido, and thank you for that, sir. Okay, here are some of the things that I learned today. It's not just about safety, but a way of thinking about the incidents, just like what's happening as what he is showing to us, a way of understanding safety incidents and conceptualizing safety measures and bringing to bear the tools of safety. As said that usual incidents are human errors, and that is very important for us as a chemical engineer. We are always motivated to a new knowledge, new learning, and that we have no limit to expand our knowledge and abilities. As they called it, as chemical engineers, jack of all trades. So I recommend to all of you to continually join or be a part of the PIChE UAE activity as the whole cruise. We're not stopping digging in more helpful informations and take advantage of these opportunities. PIChE UAE aggressively giving chances, filling our minds, or exploring more. So don't neglect these things, whatever you do. And as I just close by saying, safety is priceless and isn't expensive. Safety is quality. And the most common we used to hear, safety first, and safety begins with you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, syempre, hindi mawawala ang picture taking, di ba? So, pwede ba tayong mag-open ng camera bago tayo maghiwa-hiwalay?
Sige.
Wow, gabi na sa Pinas. Ikaw na, Sir Hilbert, ang kukuha, no?
Yes, yes.
Pwede.
So yung mga nakatulog, gising-gising na.
Okay. So, smile lang kayo. Magkukuha ko ng maraming screenshots. Alright. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Sir Neil.
Keep safe. Thank you, Sir Neil.
Thank
Stay
you.
home.
Bye.
Thank you. Be safe.
Good night and keep
Bye.
safe.
Thank you, Sir
Keep safe.
Neil.
Thank you, Mr.
Sir
Be
Neil.
responsible.
Thank you, Sir Neil.
Ingat kayo.
Sana makapunta rin sa Japan.
After COVID lang.
Hello, Sir Chris.
Sabay-sabay tayo.
Okay. Kalas?
Thank you, Lan, for moderating. Thank you, Becky, for coordinating.
Comedy, no?
Yes. Hindi na. Yes. Hope to see you guys.
Sir Ben, no? Bagong gupit. Pogi.
Babay sa inyo.
Kita ba?
Oh, bago. Pogi Parang bumata
Actually,
lang. 1 year old
During yung ano natin kanina, nasa planta ako.
Nakuha na ni mo?
Nanonood lang ako.
Okay.
Wala ko gisita. Huwag mo din ni plastic.
Si Chris ang bagong look, oh. Ibang
Oo
ano.
nga eh. Sir Chris, what happened? Parang napabayad kayo sa kusina.
Oo. Hindi, nagpapalongit lang.
Buhat niya eh.
Parehas tayo eh, no? Bumibilog na.
Papahaba lang, tinitake advantage yung ano.
Ayan talaga lang pag napabayaan sa ano.
Oo nga eh.
Hindi ko nakilala si Sir Chris.
Oo, kakaiba. Ang pangalan eh, baka hindi natin makilala eh.
Oo. Importante, ano?
Anong meron?
Hindi pa rin-
Kami nakapula ngayon.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Parang ayaw pa mag-leave ang mga tao.
Valentine's siguro
Kwentuhan.
Pwede magkwentuhan kung wala kang hindi kayo busy.
Kaya eh.
Next time, sino naman gustong mag-moderate?
Kailan ba next? Di ba si Janice yung ano?
Si Janice ang ating na yes for the chat week. Si
Sa
Janice.
chair.
I think si Chris na yata ang sunod.
Parang iba yung tinawag ni Sir Neil sa kanya.
Dominic.
Ano tawag?
Si Sir Kunz. Kunz siya. Kasi Concibido
Kaya nga eh.
Kunz.
Mm,
Di ba pag high school, uso yung apelyido ang tawag sa'yo? Kunz. Pati si Kunz. Concibido, naging Kunz.
sa chemistry ba siya nagturo?
Chemistry, nung pagka-graduate niya, tapos nag-masters, tapos bumalik, nag-ensign.
Bakit hindi ko inabot yun?
Kabatch mo ba?
Chemistry siya nung nasa LB ka pa.
Sino may kabatch sa kanya?
Batch ano siya, sir? 88 ba siya? 89 pumasok ng college or 87?
Lali
so
parts yan.
Mga 93.
Mo, ano, Sir Ben?
Baka ganun.
Ay,
mga ganun.
Hindi, 90 ako eh.
Ay, hindi. Ano siya? 87, 88. Mga ganun.
Tumawad pa, no?
Oo, dapat lang.
Tawad pa. Ayun, next week, attend tayo ng mga webinars para sa
Okay, sige.
Next week pala, week after next sa Chet Week.
Siguraduhin naka-close yung mga Zoom nyo pag...
Oo, baka mamaya makapitan tayo
Mas scandal pa tayo.
Yun nga.
Yun ang pinakamatinding skandalo, no?
So, kailan ang next natin, Sir Hilbert?
Next natin ay kasi may Chet Week, so we're still discussing kung baka may Saturday or Friday, pero hindi pa finalized.
PIChE chat.
Andyan si Janice, so iano siguro natin baka Sunday, September 19th.
Hindi, mami, masave po yung wala na lang.
So, i-launch natin yung ating unang chit-chat talk.
Oo, wala pang official name kung ano ba yung mapagkasundoan.
Pero
ibigay ko na sa kanila, Janice, yung tatlong names.
Pasensya na sa mga baliw na ideas, pero sa mga gantong panahon kasi maganda pa rin na yung in a way may ganyang mga events. Diba, Sir Rico, ikaw ang aming buena mano.
Kaya nga eh. Sige.
Okay. Sige.
Interesting yun.
Okay.
Okay, sige. Thank you.
Alis na ako. Sige, thank you.
Sige.
Okay.
Maraming salamat.
Okay,
Pasensya na.
Sir Arnel, yung charger
nice
ko na
weekend.
sa inyo pa, ha?
Po, bye-bye.
Out na rin ako,
Bye-bye,
Sir
Ma'am Eileen.
Gilbert team.
Ano na?
Ingat kayo.
Sige, Frank.
Okay.
Thank you. Pala, Sir Frank.
Oo, nandiyan si Frank.
Yes, sir. Nakita kita.
Ikaw daw ulit. Next.
Siyempre, Alan, hindi yan mawawala. Ikaw mag-host eh. So,
Kararating natin nga lang kanina eh.
inaantay ni Frank eh.
Kasi parehas kayo Henkel din eh, no? Henkel din si Sir Neil. Diba?
Ay, hindi.
Oo nga, nakita ko nga.
Henkel
Pero
nga.
hindi naman natin siya doon na tumagal.
Oo. Oy, Frank, wala ka nung weekend. Nasaan ka?
Ha?
Nung weekend, puro ka trabaho, hindi ka namin nakasama tuloy.
Oo, pero naka-online ako nung Kaso nga,
dapat tumabot
kasi may trials kami.
Ikaw, inaantay namin sa inom eh.
Hanggang 5:30 nga sila eh. Walang lusot talaga actually eh. Di ba?
Hindi kami pinatulog ni Becky.
Ako talagang may kasalanan.
Babalik ako dyan. Soon.
Sige, balik na kayo. Malapit na taglamig. Pwede na ulit camping.
Sir, push na yan. Para pantanggal stress po.
Matulog tayo sa Jebel Jays.
Ay, yan pa pala si Warren, no? Oo, tama yan, no?
Pwede na,
Yes, sama na si Ma'am Lynn.
Ma'am Lynn. Ano?
Ay, Ma'am Lynn,
Pwede nang i-plan, Pwede nang i-plan.
Nako, Chris, paano ka makakalabasin sa Abu Dhabi? Mahirap kayo makalabas. Wala makapasok.
Pagbalik mo, sir, may may libre sa Sharjah. COVID test.
Pero ano lang yun, mga may Sharjah visa or anyone?
Lahat. Kasi yung nakita ko, taga Abu Dhabi siya. Bago siya pumasok, nagpa-test na.
Wow, makapasok nga Abu Dhabi.
Oo.
Sir. Hilbert, pag pumasok ka ng Abu Dhabi, kunin mo yung matte flex na t-shirt.
Ayusin ko pa pala yung price.
Kunin mo yung matte flex na shirt namin ni Ma'am Marilyn.
Sige. Balak, yun. Tama. Kailangan kong kunin yan. Anyway, every weekend naman ako ay nasa labas. Kaya...
Bakit wala si Rodel?
Hindi ko alam. Baka busy.
Si Marcy.
Oo nga, mga taga Abu Dhabi.
Mga Abu Dhabs.
Gayahin ko nga yung book ni Sir Chris. Mag-Korean
Pwede.
Oo nga, Sir Chris, parang nasa Korea yung mo.
Parang yan pang crash landing ata yung book na ganyan.
Pakita ko yung sa anak ko, yung second ko, mahaba rin.
Sige.
Yan. Ayun.
Ma'am Lynn, maligo tayo sa dagat.
Kaya na Sir Arnel.
Plan.
Pwede si Sir Arnel.
Next week.
Next week ulit.
Next week na kagad.
Next week na.
Go.
Anytime.
Gala
Hello baby. Matulog ata yung anak ko hindi maingay.
grabe, carbon copy mo na, Chris.
Yan, BTS. BTS.
Di ba? Carbon copy na, Chris.
Pwede. Kaya pala.
Ano sa BTS?
Oo nga Ayos
Wait na kasi papasok na
pasukan ulit. Paano ang pasukan, Sir Chris, dyan?
Ginawa, pinipili yung mga parents. Tapos, ang pinili mo namin, alternate.
Blended,
Meron bang school dito na fully online class?
Bali, Hilbert, ang sabi sa balita, 2 weeks na distance learning lahat muna.
Okay.
So hanggang September 10. Pero pagdating ng September 10, pwede na yung blended.
Okay.
Pero yung 2 weeks Distance learning talaga.
Pero hindi sila kailangan mag-test, no?
May mga exam pa rin.
COVID test, I mean.
Oo. Alam ko meron sa mga senior na ano, grade 11 and 12.
Pero alam mo, meron akong fearless.
Tapos
pagpasukan mo. Kasi ang spread mo dyan, through the students Say from parents to students to students to parents. So, feeling ko tataas pa tayo. Kasi nga ngayon walang pasukan, tumataas pa, di ba? Paano?
Oo nga, kaya iwas-iwas pa rin pagpunta sa labas.
Oo nga. Tignan mo tayo, nag-meet tayo, hindi natin alam, baka may mga infected na. Joke lang.
At least safe naman, di tayo nagkita-kita.
Hindi, nung weekend kako.
Oo, meron bang maghintay pa tayo ng 14 days.
Hindi, kasi sabi nilang symptoms lumalabas ng 4 to 5 days. So, naman, inakabahan kaya ako kasi nung mga nakarang araw, may time
baka lalamunan.
Hindi, meron akong time na halos nilagnat ako. Hindi na nilagnat, hindi talaga mainit. Iba lang yung pakiramdam ko. So, naisip ko agad yung biyahe ko sa RAC, nakita-kita tayo.
Sir,
common colds.
Mag-suob. Ano ba yun? Tama ba? Suob.
Sukob.
Ayan, sukob. Yan. Hindi
yung mag-inhale ng salt. Tubig mainit.
Enter pa sa meeting room.
Nag-enter pa?
Kaya siguro ako medyo na kasi nagprutas at gulay lang kinakain ko. Kaya siguro nangihina ako na para akong lalagnatin. So,
low carbs na or no carbs na?
Sir, di ba sabi ko sa'yo mag-cleansing ako? So, nagsimula ako mag-cleansing. No carb yun. Kaya ako medyo, alam mo yung feeling lalagnated na hindi naman natuloy.
Hindi naman totally no carbs na dahil meron kang gulay May carbs pa rin doon.
Nakakapraning lang pag mga ganong bagay. Diba? Yung manghihina ka tapos mukha ka lalakatin or sisipunin.
Praning talaga yung panahon ngayon. Pagka parang sinisipon ka, feeling mo, may COVID ata ako. Ganun talaga yung pakiramdam. Pero hindi naman talaga.
Oo, tama. Tsaka mo lang malalaman pag may test, no?
Tsaka kung talagang nawa ka talaga. Ganun talaga yun. Wala namang magagawa Wala namang ibang masasabi mo. Siyempre, isipin mo, paano ka nahawaan? Hindi mo na maiisip yun, paano ka talaga nahawaan. Kasi pwedeng, di ba? Anything na nahawakan mo or what?
Tama. Anyway.
Dali kasi yung sa immune system. Pagka mahina yung immune system mo talaga, madali kang mahawa.
Totoo yun. Sa totoo lang, pwede naman nahawaan tayo tapos hindi naman nagtuloy Dahil yung immune system natin
Tama.
Pwede naman talaga yun
Totoo yun. Tama yun. Totoo yun.
So, ibig sabihin, pag nadali ka, yun talaga yung nakapalad sa'yo.
Oo. Alam nyo ba, meron tayong fellow na nag-COVID positive.
Hindi. Sino?
Hindi ko na sasabihin.
Bawal pala yun. Bawal yun.
Nag-positive siya. Pero 3 months ago, survivor naman siya, tsaka asymptomatic. So,
siya ba yung pumunta sa Spain?
Hindi.
Pero alam mo yung sinasabi ko pumunta sa Spain,
Ano nangyari sa kanya? Si Ron?
Hindi ko rin alam Si Sherwin, no?
Sherwin, sino nga ba yun?
Sherwin ang pangalan
Basta hindi ko na maano. Meron nga yan. Kasi noong February pa yun March, di ba?
Oo nga, mukhang wala nang balita
Okay naman siya. Ay, nga pala, balik tayo ulit dun, Janice, dun sa dun sa kanyang, sa activity natin na, yung iba hindi pa na-inform dito, no? Hindi, pero alam mo na yun, Lan. Siguro sa iba, yung sabi nga na si Rico kanina, yung isang activity natin is, aside sa webinar, meron tayong parang chit-chat na session. So, hindi talaga siya formal presentation. More on spotlight or variety show. Kumbaga, may parang Boy Abunda style. Parang gano'n. Talk show. Yun yung word na hanap ko. So, si Janice yung host natin. Joke lang, binenta na si Janice na. Wala pa naman. Wala pang format. Pero more on informal, tapos hindi technical yung training or yung content ng talk. Kundi more on, parang kay Sir Kunz kanina, na ano lang. Sige Warren, ingat. So, si Frank, umalis na rin pala si Frank.
Oh. Magluluto daw eh.
Magluluto daw siya. Okay. Alright. So, yun, para siyang talk show nga, tas more informal. Hindi highly technical, kundi parang more on sharing. Sharing ng knowledge. Di ba parang yung kay Sir Kunz kanina, medyo practical yung dating. So, magiging ganun yung format natin.
May naisip ako na pwedeng iyayain. Kasi since Boy Abunda, tapos si Alan, nakapangalan ko, Boy Abundance ang tawag sa kanya. Boy Abundance. Kasi kalbo siya, di ba? So, baka pumayag kung hindi naman masyadong technical yung usapan.
Aray ko.
Hindi, more on knowledge share.
Sorry, Sir Arnel, pero wala namang ako problema sa mga kalbo.
Inulit pa eh.
Kalbo.
Joke lang.
Tapos may tatlo ng yung tatlong nominated na tawag si Janice. Yun nga yung PIChE chat. Ita-type ko na nga lang.
Kaya nga. PIChE chat.
Ano yan? Sige. Mga naisip.
Ayan.
Janice.
Tapos ano din siya, yung tipong halimbawa, mga chem-eng siya na successful naman sa field nila, pero hindi natin naisip na, pwede palang maging ganun yung trabaho ng isang chem-eng. Halimbawa, si Ate Rhea, blackmate ni Alan. Kumbaga, okay siya sa mga okay din siya sa process safety. So nagra-run siya ng FAST, risk assessment, fire and life safety. Successful siya sa ganung field, pero hindi natin ina-expect na pwede pala yung chem-eng sa ganung career. So parang eye-opener din siya career-wise. So, yun. Ganun yung mga tipong magiging sharing.
Oo. Tapos, ayun yung tatlong naisip ni Janice. Ako, boto ako sa center stage. Kasi yung iba, yung PIChE chat, kasi chit chat. So parang dinugtong lang, PIChE chat. Kaya lang parang hindi ganun ka,
center stage. Oo nga, maganda yung center stage.
Yung PIChE kucha na kuha yan ni Janice Becky sa ano nga ba yun? Pecha kucha nins? Pecha, no? Pecha kucha.
Maganda siya, sir. Kakaibang term.
Kasi
yung pecha kucha, pag titranslate siya, bali, siya yung Japanese term for chit-chat, yung pecha kucha. Parang din siya, ginagawa din siya sa kung saan parte sa world na parang TED Talks na format din yan. Yan.
Parang gano'n.
Sige.
Pero mas maganda siyang pakinggan yung yung parang makikita maano mo agad yung center stage. Okay lang, boto ko lang ay sa center stage. Pero din naman yung dalawang pangalan.
Hilbert, pati hindi ko nababasa yung chat mo. Saan mo i-chinat?
Baka sa amin.
Dito, sa Zoom.
Baka chat to Alan siguro yan.
Hindi, everyone,
everyone nga eh. Ayun, PIChE kucha.
Wait lang, sa waiting room ko na send.
Ba't di ko siya nababasa kasi?
Hindi, kasi wala ka sa waiting room. Ito. Ayan, yan. Bakit sa
waiting room? Yan. Okay.
Nga ba? Ayun. So, tingnan natin. Kailangan pala natin ito minsan,
Oo, i-open din natin sa BOT kung anong feedback nila.
I-check ko tsaka, Becky. Ikaw, Lan, ano sa'yo?
Okay din yung PIChE kucha.
PIChE kucha. Tanong lang natin si Chris, ano bang mas, sa'yo, appealing na,
Ang problema lang sa PIChE kucha kasi baka magkamali ka ng salita.
At saka parang kailangan mo siyang i-explain.
Sorry, Sir Chris.
Ano, Chris, sa'yo?
Okay lang yan, sir.
Kahit ano?
Oo, kahit ano, sir. Okay lang.
Wala kang napupusuan. Ikaw, Sir Arnel, anong maganda pakinggan?
Mas ano ko yung center stage.
Center stage, ha?
Oo nga. Pwede din naman.
Ma'am Lynn, anong napupusuan?
Chat.
Wala na si Ma'am Lynn.
Ano, sir? Ano yun, sir?
Chat.
Yung ano, ayan po, yung sa chat, may 3 tayong pangalan ng activity natin. PIChE chat, PIChE chat, center stage. Para sa parang activity natin na talk show, parang ganun. Chit-chat lang. So nag-iisip lang kami ng mga pangalan na medyo creative.
Okay na yun, sir. Okay naman yung mga idea niyo.
Ideas. Sige, anyway, mga present lang na ito ni Janice. Tignan natin kung anong mananalo at anong magiging okay sa lahat. Ayun. Alright, Lan. Thank you, Lan, ha. Sa pag-moderate.
Walang problema.
Becky, salamat din sa pag-coordinate. At Sir Arnel at Ma'am Lynn, salamat sa opening prayer and closing remarks.
Closing.
Ingat po tayo.
No problem.
Ang ganda nung closing remarks ni Ma'am Lynn.
Oo nga eh.
Ang beauty pageant talaga siya.
Oo. Grabe talaga ang Miss CDO. Grabe.
Oo nga eh.
Nanalo.
Panalo nga.
Sama ka,
Open ng
ma'am,
camera
sa
ko.
Sa rack.
Parang sinegot yung
Camera kasi yun pa yung pagsulat ko. Binasa ko ulit.
Oo nga, natuloy din Ma'am Lynn yung pag-closing nyo. Kasi dati, di ba, hindi na natuloy. Wala ka, hindi ka nakapasok. So at least
Pang
ngayon.
Miss Universe si Ma'am Lynn.
Ano, please?
Pang Miss Universe. Na parang sinagot yung what is the essence of a woman.
Yun. Inanindigan talaga ni Ma'am Lynn ang kanyang
Oo, ang kanyang title na Miss Earth. Kaya hindi pwedeng ipasa ang corona kahit kanino. Si Ma'am Lynn forever. Miss Earth natin.
Basta mag-coronavirus.
Huwag mo ipasa, sir.
Ma'am Lynn, work from home ka or pupunta ka sa office?
Lahat sila nasa office. Ako lang yata ang hinayaan na magstay sa bahay ng 2 days.
Kasi sa iyo ang corona eh. So, kailangan na.
Wow.
Ako lang kasing matanda sa office. Ako mahawaan.
Takot mahawaan. Ikaw, Chris, home pa rin?
Hindi, sir. Simula, umpisa, hindi naman ako nag-work from home.
O nga pala, no? Nabanggit mo nga pala na napapasok.
Sa site.
Oo, tama.
Site
Wala namang na-apektuhan sa office nyo nung time na yun.
Sa office namin, wala naman. Sa site, meron pa ilan-ilan.
Sa site talaga marami, no?
Ano pala, Hilbert, di ba tinanong natin kung paano ginagawa yung virtual audit? Naisip ko tuloy, pwede kayang